Good evening. Welcome along. Inspire and be inspired. Tonight we are discussing mental health, and the topic title is the art of giving a shit. So welcome along to one and all, especially to people catching us on the recording as well. I have a guest with me, and I'm not going to ramble on too much because I always get really strangely confused at the very beginning, so that I'm just going to go straight to my guest and jump into this and say, Ellie, good evening, good afternoon, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm,
Thank you for having me.
uh,
Thank you for having me.
well, the story you were just telling me about the multitudes of people that you had watching you is going to put my little stream to shame, really. But I think we're going to have a nice little conversation. A lot of people are going to relate to this. Um, we Let's just roll back very quickly how we met. We met at the Vocal Booth Weekender 2 years ago now, in the midst
Yes.
of those crazy storms. You finally did. You actually, I can't remember, did you have any issues getting there, or was it fine for you arriving on the Friday?
I mean, there was a bit of a row in the car on the way to the airport, but apart from that, it was fine. It was great. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that was where we met, and you had a lovely time. It was great to
Great.
show you this area, and since then we've communicated once or twice, but I don't really know a great deal about you. And the way that I like to do these conversations, I like to keep them as natural as possible, so we get to know each other live in front of everybody.
Brilliant.
So tell me all about yourself, because there's a lot more layers to you than I actually realised when we did first meet. So tell us all about yourself.
Well, firstly, I will announce to everybody I have long COVID. So I was just explaining to Andy, I'm a bit of a Doris right now, so I keep sort of forgetting things, or maybe I repeat myself. So thank you all in advance for your patience. I'm Ellie Talebian. I live in Brighton, very close to the sea. I'm a mum to a little boy called Franklin, who's 8 years old. I'm a DJ, radio presenter, hypnotherapist, and I work with companies that basically give a shit in the music industry and outside of that too. So I've kind of always worked in the charity sector, sunk my teeth into the music industry, loved it, didn't get paid a lot of the time, and then got paid a lot of the time, got my dream job as a radio presenter 5 nights a week for sort of the main station in the region I live in. And then we got snapped up by one of the bigger companies. They made everybody lose their jobs, which was terrible. And yeah, then I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm going to focus on things that mean something to me, that still incorporate music and people. And that's where I'm kind of at now. So I support young carers. I'm very much behind getting people in the music industry to have mental health first aid training, or have more conversations around mental health. So I do a lot of talks like this, and I love hypnotherapy. I qualified for that last year, having had hypnotherapy myself, and that being a real life-changing moment for me. Like, I think all therapy is good. You have to find what moves you and what feels good for you. But for me, hypnotherapy is just the business. It's where it's at.
Okay, let me ask you a very ignorant question. Is
Yeah.
is being hypnotized the same as hypnotherapy, or are they two totally separate things?
It's
Can
the
you
same
make people
thing,
run
but
around with their pajamas
yeah,
on?
yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't do that, but all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So it's about sort of being in that state of deep relaxation and the ability to kind of enter places in your mind, and having somebody facilitate that for you. And it cuts out all of the part where you have to sit down and talk to somebody and get deep and get angry. So I've done that before. I've been to counselling. I've sat in a room with a counsellor and spoken to them for like an hour or two. And then you leave and you've got all this stuff that's been worked up in you, and there's nowhere to put it. Do you know what I mean? So you might take it home with you,
Okay.
or take it to the next person you bump into the street with. Whereas with hypnotherapy, you're doing it all there and then on your own with somebody facilitating. It's just magic. Maybe we can do it sometime.
Okay, sounds interesting. I'll be a little bit worried about all the deep, dark secrets you draw out of me, though, while I was under. So maybe not. Maybe not the best suggestion. So you skirted very quickly. The first thing that came out of your mouth was, "I've got long COVID." So, like, it identifies you. Tell us all about this.
Oh, it's rubbish. It's really rubbish. It's waking up every day and feeling like you've got the flu, and then sort of not knowing whether or not you're going to be well enough to do your job or look after your kids. So I've got an 8-year-old. So yesterday we stayed in all day, which was pretty rubbish for him, but also great for him because it meant that he could play games and do whatever he wanted. But yeah, I've just got fatigue all the time. So my body is completely hurting all the time. I'm someone that's used to exercising or training 5 days a week. I haven't done that for over 4 months. So before I got COVID, I got a shoulder injury. So my son and I wrestled quite a lot, and he jumped on me and he gave me a rotator cuff injury. So that put me out. Then I caught COVID. So I've put on about a stone, right? So I put on a stone. I'm eating takeaways all the time. I think people are comparing it to ME a lot, and I didn't have an understanding of ME. And I think when I'm better, I will give some money to some ME charities, or I will try and do something to support people that have ME, because I was maybe a bit ignorant about what ME entailed and what that experience
but
was
now
like.
you can fully empathise now.
Yeah, 100%. This, I wouldn't wish this on anyone, and I don't know if old people would be able to, or elderly people would be able to hack this, because I just feel ruined.
Mental.
Sorry, I know that's really boring.
No, it is. It isn't boring at all. I'm happy sitting here and listening to you say that. I'm just going to say, as you can see, because you're looking at the same window that I'm looking at, we're getting a lot of comments. A lot of people are with us from time to time. Feel free to address any of the comments that people make if you want to, and all of our friends will understand that we're deep in conversation. So we might not immediately be able to address what they're saying, but I can see everybody here. So thank you all, guys, for your comments, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I really have no agenda to this discussion. I knew when I started doing these talks that you were somebody that I wanted to bring on board, because you've really impressed me with the topics that I've seen you talking. I caught one of your talks over on Clubhouse quite a few weeks ago. I was in a room while you were in there, and I said, what can we talk about? And mental health came up, and I said, well, how about the title being, the art of giving a shit, and let's address mental health. Very relevant at the moment. A lot of people that I know have just lost somebody very close to them due to this issue. So how are we gonna tackle it? Where do we begin?
I want to address this comment first before we do. I'm sorry to hear about your 16-year-old. Yeah, it's really, I'm sort of 3 months in. It's really, really hard. Thank you for your get well wishes. I appreciate them a lot. Where do we begin with mental health? I think we begin by accepting that it's a personal responsibility. Unless somebody's sort of really far down the line, whereby, like I spoke to you about in a personal conversation earlier, where there's that real intervention needed. Everybody has mental health. We all have it, right? So we're all born with it. We all die with it. It's the one thing that is with you every single day. As soon as you open your eyes, it's how you're feeling or how anything makes you feel. But we have to accept that it's a personal responsibility, which requires a sense of discipline, the same approach to eating food if you're trying to eat healthy or eat right. And, it's that. Sometimes people, they put loads of energy and time into feeling good, and then they're like, oh, I'm feeling good now. And then they stop doing all the stuff. They stop doing the meditation or the yoga or going to the gym every day or going for the walk or whatever it is that makes you feel good. So it's about understanding that it's a personal responsibility. No one else is going to do your mental health for you.
Okay.
When I speak to my friends and say if they're moaning about a boyfriend or husband and they're like, oh, he's doing this and he's doing that, my approach generally, which is why I'm probably the dream girlfriend, is that I'm joking, I'm not, but I always go within first. So rather than going, he's being this and he's being that, or that person's this, that person's being that, I go, actually, is it me that has the problem? Is this a piece of work that I need to do on myself so that I'm more accepting of that behaviour? Because love with anyone is support, distance and acceptance.
Okay, are those your words, or have you taken that from a book? Because that's impressive.
I've taken that from somewhere, but I don't know what. So yeah, I've taken love is acceptance, distance and support from somewhere, because I always bear it in mind. because it's really important to let people, I mean, I'm moving the conversation on slightly, but it's always important to let people have their space to be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a problem with who somebody is, generally that's something about you.
Yeah,
which
it's an
then
inner
goes back to
reflection.
which then goes back to your mental health being a personal responsibility. So most of the time, if I come into an issue or something happens, like earlier I told you my son's a bit of a teenager, given that he's 8. When he had a big explosive tantrum on Saturday, I didn't sort of go blah, 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 and start shouting back at him. I just came home, went on Audible and downloaded 2 books to go, what can I do about this? Like, how do I be more accepting of this?
That's great, but that's down to your knowledge and your understanding of dealing with it. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have that wisdom and to be able to address it in that way. Do you?
Yeah, I can see these comments about stigma. We do need to remove the stigmas attached to mental health, and that's why I do these talks, basically, because every time I show up in my own circumstances and talk about my mental health or share my joy and pain, you always create room for others to do the same, and you normalize the conversation. So with my clients, when we have team meetings and they go, you know, how is everybody today? And everyone will sort of go, yeah, I'm all right. And I'll go, actually, I'm pretty shit and I'm feeling like this. And it's okay because I'm dealing with it, but I will always tell the truth about where I'm at, because that's how we normalize it. That's how we remove the stigma, is when we're consistently honest about how we're feeling, or we call out behaviour which is negative around mental health. So I shared with Andy earlier, one of my cousins was schizophrenic, and I remember being in Sainsbury's with him, helping him do his food shopping, and people were pointing at him and laughing at him. We got followed around by the security guards, and I said something. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like properly educating those people in the milk aisle about, you know, mental health and what they need to do, because it's that stigma. That's why people act in that way, or they other, and they create difference around mental health, because there's still so much stigma.
Mm-hmm. I think this is all attached to your upbringing when you were younger. If you cast your mind back to when you were growing up, and it wasn't such a politically correct world that we live in, and so it was quite easy to call out names of disabilities or people. You know, the mental health back then was totally different. You know, I mentioned earlier the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what people imagine immediately, isn't it, when they think of hospitals like that? I feel like I'm treading on eggshells. I don't want to say the wrong word. You know,
No,
what's the
no,
wrong
don't.
thing?
But that's fine, isn't it? It's we're all educating each other and ourselves all of the time. So I wouldn't worry about treading on eggshells. And I think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest punctuates it perfectly, and it's why a member of my family won't get mental health treatment, because that's what comes into their head, is that really old school 70s electric shock treatment approach to mental health, and it terrifies them. And this person that's commented saying there's not a lot of support out there on how to cope, and individuals who are mentally unwell, I think if that's framed in the way I'm thinking, which is, yeah, we're not sort of taught, or we weren't taught, a generation of us weren't taught what a mentally unwell person looks, sounds, acts like, and how to be with them. So instead it's that walking over the other side of the road approach, isn't it?
100%. And you've only got to look at the you see these TV shows regards to the ambulance services or the police services, and 8 times out of 10 or whatever, it isn't actually a criminal offence that they're dealing with. It's somebody with mental health issues, that it isn't their role to deal with these people. It's a much wider issue on many of the situations that I've seen as well. But then it starts to get a little bit political and all those kind of things, which is not something that I'm even going to attempt to address.
Okay.
So we said about the art of giving a shit. What does it mean to you?
The art of giving a shit to me means having integrity. So it's doing the right thing when nobody's watching, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's picking up that £5 note and giving it to the right person, or whatever. It's being a little bit extra for other people and putting yourself in other people's shoes. So it's having empathy And it's finding something that motivates you and moves you and doing something about it. Like it's making people feel good. That for me is the art of giving a shit, and it's consistently giving a shit. So we spoke about it earlier. You've mentioned it on the tagline, the artwork for this conversation, but it's not just talking about mental health on World Mental Health Day. It's not just saying, somebody's mentioned Caroline Flack here, it's not just saying be kind and then actually being a twat a week later. And knocking people and stuff like that. It's like, if you're going to post about being kind, if you're going to post about mental health, make that part of your language, make that part of who you are on your day-to-day basis. And it's asking people how they are and really meaning it and actively listening to what they're saying, not just going in for that response where they go, yeah, I'm all right, and accepting it. That's giving a shit. It's sort of just probing a little bit further. And we're not all qualified to have the conversations that can come out of that, but it's making a good attempt, having a stab at it. Or it's, you know, one way I've given a shit during COVID, because somebody's mentioned the mental health impact during COVID. You know, I live on my own for 50% of the week. That's pretty shit. It can be really lonely sometimes. I always thought I was this really independent cat that like didn't need anybody. Like I sometimes compare myself to Batman. You know, I don't need anyone. I'm fine. And then along comes COVID and I'm at home on my own. I'm like, well, this is a bit rubbish. And, you know, and I really felt for my neighbour who lives underneath me because he's on his own. So my art of giving a shit with him was like, okay, I'm going to make him a roast dinner every time I make a roast dinner and just leave it outside his front door whether he wants it or not. And I'm not saying that for attention. I don't need attention for it. I know it's a nice thing and I just do it because how easy is it to plate up extra food for someone? But that's giving a shit. That's being extra.
But that's generally being a nice person, you know. Not everybody possesses that ability to be a nice person all the time. I mean, and I'm not sitting in judgment. We all have our flaws. We're all broken in some kind of way. But some people do find it a lot easier to make other people feel good than others. It's no coincidence where there are people out there who have a reputation as being somewhat of a miserable so-and-so, or, you know, not many people like them, and yet they're married in a family, and you think, well, that doesn't make sense. You know, and then others, they appear to be incredible on the outside, and yet you never know what's really going on deep inside. So how do we make sure that how we are dealing with the shit that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis doesn't affect other people? And how do you know when it's okay to share that you're in a bad place with those around you? Because there is a stigma attached as well, because you don't want someone rolling their eyes and going, oh, Jesus, I wish I hadn't have asked.
That's such a great question. Do you know how many of these talks I do and nobody ever asks that question?
It's because I think about it all the time.
Hold on, I'm just going to do some Googling and come back in a minute. That's kind of what mental health first aid training is about. It's about qualifying people and supporting them to confidently have conversations so they can signpost people to the right place, right? So you don't do mental health first aid training and come out a mental health first aid expert or an expert in mental health. You come out a bit more confident and being able to recognise the signs and symptoms of different mental health crises and knowing how to signpost people. I think if you don't feel, and you can get training for free, you can pay for training, we can come along and deliver it to your organisations. You know, there's lots of different training types out there. Don't worry about the typos. I do speed texting when I'm angry. You know, I get, when you're like sending someone a text.
Well, there's a funny joke actually. When I am doing something with Vocal Booth, for example, we're releasing tickets, or I'm getting to the end of the hotel, selling out or whatever, and I believe, and this is things that I'm addressing, I believe I've crafted the perfect email to get the information across. Yeah. And yet I still get people asking me, and I'm like, that's the information's there, and I'm typing and I'm like, and Michelle sat on the settee and she's like, are you all right there, Beth? I say, yes. So, you know, I'm exactly the same.
Firing it off. I think
carry on.
Sometimes we can have the most magical conversations with people we don't even know very well. So I met a man in a shared office space about 3 or 4 years ago, and we got on. And we just know, I know you're not angry. We are angry. No, no. And we just got on. And now, if I have like a work problem or something and something's on my mind, I will phone him. And I don't even know him very well, but just in that one afternoon we spent together in an office, we just built up a really solid friendship whereby I know that I can call him. And sometimes the people that you talk to, or the people that want to talk to you about their problems, aren't always people that you know very well. And that is because when you're talking to people you don't know very well about your shit, they don't have any judgment of you. They don't know where you're coming at it from, and they're going to be much more open to listening to you. Mm-hmm. Like, we can do a really great exercise in a minute if you want to, and we can get everybody that's watching and listening to this to do the same exercise. I do this with kids, I do it with adults. It's a really great way of thinking about and considering your personal network and who you go to for advice, and whether or not you actually need to increase your personal network, whether your network is good enough. It's just a really nice way to go, who do I talk to when I'm not feeling safe or when I'm in trouble? I think if people open up to you and you don't feel confident having that conversation, do you know what? Sometimes people just need someone to listen. Listening is absolutely golden. You're doing a beautiful job of listening to me prattle on right now, and I'm really grateful to you for it. Thank you. Everybody else that's listening as well. But listening can be just as good as giving advice. That's why counsellors exist, right? That's why therapy exists, because some people just want to be heard and they don't get heard where they need to be heard. Yeah, exactly.
Most sometimes, definitely.
Go on, Andy, sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm happy to sit here listening to you, because a lot of these things you learn, you improve. You have situations that you make mistakes. Talking about myself personally, I've made mistakes when talking with people in the past, and I always say to people, and I'd like to think that a lot of my network, they know, I will always reach out and say, if you ever need to offload, if you ever got issues, I'm always here to have a non-judgmental ear for you. And I've also learned, because of the way I am, I used to always try and provide an answer to people's issues, and then it's a case of, no, I don't actually have all the answers. I don't profess to have the answers, but I'm happy to listen to what you've got to say and then suggest people who do have the answers, which I think is very important. And I just want to get a little deep for a second. Well, as much as needs to be, actually. You said something about there you can get training, and I think it'll move us on to an important part of this conversation. When we talk about people who are struggling so much with their mental health that they end up taking their own lives. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine in Australia took his life just before Christmas. He was a very successful promoter. To all intents and purposes, to the rest of the world, he was doing fantastic. He had a bit of a drink problem. He liked to go out and party like most of the people in the industry. And then we all got the news that he'd taken his own life. And it really shocked me and it shook me. And I wanted to share, to reach out to my friends, my network of people, and say to them, listen, if you're ever in a position where you just feel you can't speak to anybody, then please do come to me. And I ended up somehow finding an online course that you can take for suicide awareness. I'm sure you're aware, you will know the name of it. I can't drag it from the depths of my mind right now, but I ended up taking this online course, and I was surprised when it said that if someone's not feeling very well and they have, it isn't a bad thing to ask them if they have suicidal thoughts. You're not planting the seed in their head. And that's one of the big things that I took from that course. And I've shared that on a regular basis, and shared it again most recently when somebody else that many people knew, unfortunately, took his own life.
I'm really sorry to hear about your friend that was promoting. That's really sad. And I lost a friend to suicide a few years ago, and I saw him literally the day before it happened in Sainsbury's. And I always think, and I remember where I saw him in the Sainsbury's, and what aisle we're in, what section we're in, and all of that. And I always sort of think, could we have said anything different to him in that minute where we saw him? Do you know what I mean? That plagues me. Mm-hmm. That I always think I was stood next to him, he was there, and does my nutting thinking about whether or not we could have done something extra there.
But
And I think
you address this in your training and in your talks, and even
yeah,
some of
yeah,
the, you know.
yeah. And I think you putting yourself out there and sort of offering yourself to have those conversations and then proactively doing that course, that's really amazing, Andy. Like, kudos to you for doing that, because not everybody does that. And I love that you've done that. And yeah, you're right, sometimes there are things that we have to accept that there was nothing we could have done, and that's really harsh. And you're right in what you said. It's being a bit, you can be a little bit more direct than you think you can in those conversations around suicide. You can say to somebody, have you thought about how you would do that? You're allowed to say that if somebody says that to you. I mean, I can relate to not being able to ask for help. I think, so I wrote this down while you were talking. So a few years ago, something really got on top with a family member of mine who I spoke to you about privately earlier. And it took me having an asthma attack under my Christmas tree at home on my own to then phone my brother and go, do you know what? I need help. Like, I just need you to listen to me and talk to me right now. Because, and it wasn't a panic attack, it was an asthma attack, because I have asthma, but stress can sometimes bring on asthma for me, right? Asking for help sometimes is really hard for people. Like, I know that much. Do you know what I mean? It's really difficult for people, even if you're wise, even if you do mental health first aid training, even if you do hypnotherapy. We don't always want to ask for help. We kind of want to solve our problems on our own. But that's why it's so important that we do ask for help and that we do show up in what's going on for us, because that's how you normalize it. That's how you take away the stigma, and that's how you open the doors for other people to come forward in their problems. So absolutely, even more respect to you. I loved you and respected you anyway, just for getting me the wine and being such a great guy when I met you the first time. But the fact that you've gone that extra and taking that responsibility for yourself and your community, that's amazing.
Thank you. Well, you say the word community. I do feel so grateful to the development, the personal development that the community have enabled me to achieve down the years, and so I will always go out of my way to give back to most of these people who are watching now, and many others. I think it's just a great place to be in. We spoke at length before we went live when we were doing the test earlier. This is all down to my upbringing, the childhood that I had, the characters that were in my life that I looked at, that I learnt good and bad from, and I understand now that every day is a massive cliche, but I say it a lot, especially when I've had like 3 glasses of wine on my radio show on a Sunday. It's a cliche, but every day's a learning curve. You can never say thank you too many times to people. You can never tell people you love them enough, I believe. And all of these things I've learned from the people in my life, and we all enrich each other. I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, every passing moment is another opportunity to turn it all around. And you can, and I have stolen that as well. That's one of my favorite lines. That's from Vanilla Sky, which is a mad film, right? It's a really unusual, quirky, abstract film, but that's a great line from it. And when we talk about giving a shit and we talk about the things you've just said, if you are someone who recognizes that maybe they can be a little bit selfish at times and maybe not be extra, you can wake up tomorrow and go, do you know what? I'm going to choose to give a shit. You can do that. Like, it's never too late to not be the person that gives a shit and not be the person that has integrity, and not just change your life and go, do you know what? I'm going to try a little bit harder to stand up in my community.
Some people, I don't know, some people don't have it in them to be able to do that, though.
I believe they do. I believe that you can.
Well, no, everybody does. Okay, everybody does, but not everybody wants to. I don't know.
No, they don't. And that's why you get people that are like my late uncle on their deathbed, that are like suddenly feeling terrible about all of the shit things they've done in their life. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of the badness. Like, he was an absolute rogue trader, to say the least. But I think you can choose to be better. You can choose to do more. I remember when I was sort of 18, 19, I was a bit of a dick, and I wasn't like a massive dick, but I knew that I was living quite a selfish life, which maybe you're allowed to be selfish at 18, 19, but I didn't feel good about it. And I just made a choice to start volunteering, and everything kind of snowballed from there. Really, I was like, I'm gonna give out to, I'm gonna help people around me, and then
Make a difference. You wanted to make a difference.
you just realise you've got, if everybody's got a spare hour in their life where they're not doing anything, you could use that hour to make somebody else's day, or
Oh,
to mentor someone, or
don't start me
help.
on that. Don't start me on who's got a spare hour.
No,
You must have
no,
spoken to
but
people.
no,
Sorry, I'm talking over you.
yeah, no, talk over me, because I do it to people all the time. I deserve it. Please talk over
I was
me.
going to say you must have spoken to people who they say they want to achieve things, and then they come out with the amazing line, "But I just haven't got the time." And it's just, and then in the next breath, they'll talk about the four series that they watched at the weekend on Netflix. And you just have to shake your head, but that's being judgmental, and you can't be judgmental. I mentioned Mark Wilkinson earlier because I've been listening to him a hell of a lot in recent times, and his knowledge and his wisdom and his coaching skills are fantastic. And I love just be I'm like a sponge. I love taking all of this information from people. I love sitting, listening. I don't have it all to share. It's very, very rare that I'll sit here trying to be the one giving the information
I was going to
out.
interrupt you. I'm going to talk over you. We are all experts in what works for us. So you
Yes,
might not think you've got it to share, but we are all experts in knowing what makes us feel good.
indeed, indeed. And that's one of the big things that I have said. And I even posted it most recently. You know, most proud how self-aware I am. I understand my flaws and I understand my strengths and I understand how I can work on all of them to become a much better person. I'm just looking at, there's so many people commenting, and we
I'm
got
loving that. I can only see the last three letters. I'm just going to assume that person's Lynn or Colin. Is it Lynn or Colin?
Colin, I believe.
Colin. So when you're walking, if you walk past people and smile, I think that's lovely. I love doing that. Andy and I spoke about it earlier, about how when you're in a shop, it's so important that you're polite and kind to the staff, but not just like, hello, how are you? Just like, properly get involved. I'm friends with a woman from Tesco's on Facebook, and then there's a woman that works as the waitress in my local burger shop. We follow each other on Instagram now. If my burger's ever late, I know I can just message her directly and she'll sort it out for me. But that's because I always have conversations with people. So my partner's like this as well, right? It's just in our nature. When we go out to dinner together outside of COVID, we talk to everybody around us, like in a restaurant, and I love it. We feed off each other, just getting everybody going.
Is
Do you
it
know what I mean? Like,
yourself and Seamus? Are you saying?
huh?
Did you say Seamus when you go out with Seamus for a meal?
Yeah. When I go out with Seamus, so we did it at the Fishbowl. So I met Andy 2 years ago in Spain, and then there was a couple sat next to us, and they weren't really talking to each other, and we're not that couple, right? And I know that it's nice to have moments of silence and stuff, but we're not that couple. We're always talking, and we're like, we're going to talk to them, and we got talking to them, and it turns out it was the old boy's birthday, so we organised him a cake while he was in the toilet or something, and and it's just lift the mood a bit.
Yeah. It's very refreshing because not everyone's like that, and there will be people who would look at you and think you are a little bit loopy. No, am I wrong? Have you got?
No, Seamus thinks I'm totally loopy. Seamus does, and I'm not saying this for a badge. Like, I don't need a badge for this, but I always believe everybody deserves birthday cake on their birthday, right? That is my law. If I have one law, it's like, if it's your birthday, you deserve a piece of cake. And there's a really fancy patisserie place at the bottom of my street, and I was in there the other week. This woman went in there, and she was next to me, and she was ordering all these cakes, and she was like, "Oh, they're not for me. Oh, but it's my birthday." And she was buying her own birthday cake, and that broke my heart.
Oh,
So I
wow.
bought it for her, right? I got it for her because she was like picking out the one she was going to have, and I was like, "Look, I'll just let me pay for that." And then I came home and I told Seamus, and I didn't tell anyone else. I didn't put it on Facebook because I didn't need to, right? Even though I'm saying it now, I don't need to do that. It's just a nice thing to do for her in that moment, because I could tell she needed it, because otherwise she wouldn't have mentioned it. And then Seamus, rather than going, "You're lovely," just goes, "You're mad." Like, he's just like, that's his response. It's like, "Yeah, you're just weird." Yeah.
Wonderful. Are you making me feel guilty now? Because I don't make a big fuss over cakes and stuff like that for
Oh
birthdays.
my God, Kate, you've got to
Michelle
make a big
does. I do make a big fuss, and I can be a hopeless romantic. But birthdays, and again, this all throws back to various different reasons through childhood and other family members and whatnot. Um, we're just sitting here. I can't even believe it's not. I thought we'd been chatting for hours. We've been talking for 35 minutes, and it's great. But have we actually covered anything of importance? I'm not sure. Have we?
I want to do this exercise because I think for anyone listening, this exercise is really, really good. So if you're listening stroke watching and you want to go back to the things that Andy mentioned earlier, actually about thinking about who you can talk to, you can do this about your community, so people around you, or you can do it about people in the workplace. So anybody that's watching in the music industry, actually, you will know what it's like when something doesn't come through the pipeline, right? Especially right now during COVID. And it's really important to know who your allies are in any industry or in life. So this is like a exercise to help you understand who you go to, who you turn to for advice. And it's just a nice thing to remind yourself to do. We can do that exercise if you want.
Okay, go for it. Go for it. Do I need a pen and paper?
Yeah, you need a pen and paper.
Okay, I got one. Got one.
You got one?
Yeah.
Okay, so draw around your hand. I've got really massive hands for a lady.
Draw around my hand.
Yeah, I've got shovels for a lady. And this is, if anybody here is watching and has children, this is a good exercise to do with kids as well, because it will help you recognise.
Right. Okay. I'm not sure if you can see because of the white balance, but yeah, I've drawn around my hand.
Who your children see as their personal network. Okay, so on your fingers.
Yeah.
I want you to write who. So just one name in it. Oh look, I can't even do it. Look, and I do TV. Who you would speak to if you were feeling uncomfortable or scared or upset about something.
On each finger, different people or one person?
One person per finger.
Per finger?
Yeah.
I haven't got that many friends.
Well, I think you have, but that's the thing. Actually, sometimes we don't have that many friends, and sometimes people will find that they might not be able to think of 5 people. These are 5 people you really trust that you could turn to when the chips are down and you need support. Who are those 5 people?
Do I have to share this? Because
No.
Okay, cool. Because these are just people I'm just thinking about straight away, and I know my friends will be like, "Why didn't you put me down?"
And if you're doing this with children or young people, it's kind of like, so I can read you my names. I'm happy to share them. If I try phoning my best friend, Krista, and she doesn't pick up the phone, I phone the next person on the finger, the next finger. And then if they don't pick up, I phone the next person after that and the next person after that. And I'm glad somebody has mentioned that they did this at a parenting course, because you know what? Sometimes the names your children put on these hands will actually surprise you. And it might not be you that they feel that they can talk to when they have a big problem, because that's often the way, isn't it? When we're growing up and we're younger, like when things are really bad, we might not want to tell our mum and dad. When I got arrested for shoplifting when I was younger, this is how naughty I was, right? I didn't tell my mum or dad. I was really close to one of my mum's friends. So before the police showed up to our house or rung my parents, I got one of my mum's mates to ring the police, pretend to be my mum, and go, "You don't need to phone. You don't need to come round. Everything's fine. Ellie's told us what she did, and you don't need to do anything. We've had a really big word with her, and that got away with it." Great.
Oh, that's incredible. Your path was set. Okay, so the
point is, I didn't go to my mum and dad about it.
Okay, well, to me, these names are quite obvious, and I think most people would probably guess these 5 names of my friends.
Okay, but not everybody actually can think of 5 names straight away, which is why this is a good exercise, because it allows you to drill into who you would turn to if you were going through a mental health crisis or you felt like you were approaching a mental health crisis.
Okay.
And then in the palm of your hand, you write down support services, such as like your doctors, or if you have a therapist or something like that. I love that story too, but let me tell you the next part of that story, which is more terrifying, is I got a tattoo done when I was 15. My mum phoned the police. The police came to interview me, and this was after the shoplifting incident. And the police guy that came round was a bit of a joker. And he got there and he was like, is there anything else you want to tell your mum before we start? And I thought he knew about the shoplifting thing. And I burst into tears and I got really upset, and he didn't. He was
Called you bluff.
but then again, I got in trouble for the tattoo, because what I used to do when I was younger, I used to sell fake IDs at school.
I'm just making notes of all of this. Broken history, yes.
And I used to make fake IDs, and I used to sell PE letters, because I've got quite nice handwriting. I used to sell letters to people to get them out of PE or get them out of certain lessons.
What is the word? Very enterprising, Ellie. Very enterprising.
I used to sell a cigarette for £1.
a single, 10 pence when I grew up, when we were kids.
I'd do a whole pack at first break, and then go back and buy a pack of 20 during lunchtime. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was good times. But the whole point about this hand is it's good to reflect on who we speak to in times of trouble, because they're not always obvious people, and they won't always be obvious people for our children and young people. They won't always be the people you think of. And, if you want to stick that up somewhere at home to remind yourself you can ask for help, that's what this is about. Because back to that conversation we had 10 hours ago, sometimes it's difficult to ask for help, but you need to remind yourself that these 5 people in your life are the people that will want you to call them if shit's heavy. They will want you to pick up the phone. They will be mortified. Humour does hide a lot of issues. I've got so many issues. But they will. Do
you feel exposed now? Everyone saw straight through.
I feel so exposed. No, I don't feel exposed at all. Because that's why I'm here. Because I give therapy. I get therapy, and part of being a therapist is that you enter therapy yourself and you work on those issues. So do the hand, touch base with who you need to connect with, and maybe even ring these people and say to them, you are somebody that I feel like I can contact if I have a problem. Check in with that, check that's okay.
That's good. It's weirdly coincidental. A couple of days ago, one of my Facebook memories popped up, and I think it was when David Bowie passed away. It was an anniversary recently, or it might have even been Prince.
Sounds more likely,
but I can't remember. And I actually, when he'd passed away, I stopped and reflected about people who in my time had been so influential and for myself, and I actually made the effort to call these people up and say to them, listen, I'm one of these people, when I get drunk, and I'll tell people how much I love them 1,000 times, and especially someone who I really look up to. And so they already know everything that I was telling them, but I just felt that I needed to put another timestamp on it and say to them, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for the inspiration you've given me. You've helped me in my career. I just needed to tell you that. And I've totally forgot why I started to tell you this. Oh yeah, because, I felt like I wanted to I'm not a big phone person, but I wanted to get that across to them, because before it was too late, you never know what's going to happen. And all these things I've learned because of bereavement in my own life, or those close to me. And I've said it does get a bit deep sometimes when I'm on a radio show, and I've said to people, we did a talk on grief. Until you actually experience that yourself, it is very, very difficult to empathize and understand the feeling of loss and regret when that does happen. And so now I will always go out of my way to let everybody know how important they are to me. I feel I kind of went off topic there, so you have to forgive me.
No, you didn't. That's such an important lesson and message to share. I think that's lovely. When I started working with the Young Carers charity that I support last year, it brought a lot of stuff up for me about my childhood, like inevitably, like it brought up a lot of issues that perhaps I maybe just hadn't thought of at the time, or I hadn't really considered who was there for me when I was growing up and who really made that difference, who helped me get out of a bad situation. And I made a phone call or a text or an email the key significant people who, when I was 19, had helped mobilize me out of my home and to get a new place and help me find work and helped my life a lot. And I got in contact with them, and one of them I hadn't spoken to for about 5 years, but I sent him this big long email, and he came back to me and he was really grateful that I'd done that. So I love that you've done that. It is always important to thank people. Like, gratitude is an amazing thing for us to practice each and every day.
Hmm. Indeed. Also, I had somebody on Facebook, and the power of text is so you can read a text wrong in so many ways, can't you?
Yeah.
And it's all you made the comment earlier. I can't relay exactly what it was that you said, but basically how you adapt, how you react to somebody is more about you than it is about what they're saying. One of my friends made a comment on Facebook, and then I made a different comment. I can't even remember what it was now, but he actually went off at me as if I was attacking him, saying something really nasty. I hadn't at all. I wasn't even thinking of. I'll tell you what it was. I'm sorry. I made a generic. Oh, hello, hello there. Who's this?
She's not. This is Bongo, but she's
Bongo.
not.
Hi, Bongo. So yeah, I made a generic point about somebody. Oh, it was actually about the be kind. I think I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
that be kind thing didn't last very long, did it?" Someone was making
Oh,
a nasty comment about, and a friend of mine who I wasn't even thinking about. Sent me a message saying, "What are you going on about, man? Oh, what are you going at me like this for?" Totally went off at me. And then I don't even know what you're talking about. He was talking about a thread he'd commented on a few days before. He obviously felt a little bit guilty about it. It was nothing to do with that. And then a few days later, he rang me, told me that he was going through a few things and whatever. He really offloaded to me, and I really appreciated that I really
oh.
appreciated that he felt that he could. And I know that all of my friends would do that if ever the situation arose. But sometimes it is very difficult to reach out to people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult to reach out to people, and it's difficult to interpret what people mean sometimes as well. You're right. That's such a good example of where things can get tricky, where you're commenting on something and then it can suddenly get a bit aggy. But again, like you say, it's that get Bongo of, yeah. I mean, must have cat butt shot. No, so the thing is, I interviewed somebody really important a few weeks ago. Not that Andy isn't important, and I'm not interviewing him anyway, but my cat gave full bumhole to the person, and it was happening during an excellent moment, so we couldn't cut it out. Do you know what I mean? Some sort of live, and it's terrible, really bad. She doesn't care. She
No.
does not give a shit.
And you obviously didn't learn from the experience, so you don't
No,
care
but
either.
can't lock her out of the room. She rules the roost here. This is her house. I just happen to live here. People who send really long texts instead of just speaking can make it complicated. Yes, they can. Yeah, they can. They can. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned as an adult is you just got to say things simply, haven't you, and not be verbose. But at the moment, because I've got long COVID, I find it really tricky to explain myself, and I don't come across
Because of the
as well.
fog. There's a fog.
Yeah, because the brain fog is a really, really real thing. So I end up using about 100 words more than I need to.
I did an exercise the other day with Mark Wilkinson. It's around e-colors. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yes.
So I did that the other day, and it was very enlightening actually about how it explained it. I mean, as I've said, I'm quite self-aware, so most of the stuff I knew anyway, but I did find out a little bit more. But more importantly, it made me aware of other people's traits, and when I believe I'm getting a message across to them, how they get it totally wrong, or they just don't get what I'm trying to say, and it's because of the language that I'm using or the way that I address it. And I've learned a hell of a lot from that. So e-colors, definitely
What
check.
colour are you? What colour?
I'm red green, top color red green.
Of course you're red. Although I'm surprised you're red, because you're sort of like a red in sheep's clothing, but red is like alpha male, isn't it? That is red is
Well,
sorry
I
to
was very balanced, actually. I was 25, 24, 27, 23, or something like that. So I was very, all colours, I was very, very close across the spectrum because I can
think,
wear many different hats, I think.
yeah, I'm yellow green. And I know this, and
Yeah, because you
then
talk a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Actually, before I forget, I see Diana in with me. I actually met Diana on that e-colours course. I didn't realise
Oh,
Diana's
did
a
you?
nice one, Diana. Thank you for passing through. She was a yellow. I can't remember the second colour. Forgive me, but yeah,
She said
definitely.
yellow blue, but I'm yellow green,
Oh yeah, she
and
did say a yellow blue.
then a blues and me kind of clash because you're opposite on the thing, aren't you? So there's a natural clash between yellows and blues, because yellows are just like, yeah, sure, whatever, we'll get it done, don't stress. And blues are detail orientated, and they want to know the facts. So Andy, do you want to take the stage and explain what the e-colours are? It's really good.
Not really, because then
Oh,
it would mean that I have to actually know what I'm talking about. It's a an online. I don't. It's an online. It's not a test. I think that isn't the word that you're supposed to use. It's a personality display indicator or something like that. Maybe Diana can tell me, because I know Diana was fully immersed in it. I got involved at the last minute, and I did it. So my colours that came up, you answer a heap of questions. It takes about 15 minutes, and it basically exposes your personality to you, and it explains why you are the way you are. It explains why you tell things the way that you do, and then it also tells you how you can clash with other people of different colours. The best way I would suggest is you get in touch with Mark Wilkinson, because he's the expert. Himself and Emma are they run some brilliant courses, and to take the course is absolutely complimentary, if that's the right word, and it's really enlightening. It could change your life tomorrow. Get on
it's
board.
super. It's super. And if you run a business as well, it's well worth doing it with your team, so you
Yes.
understand how your people interact with each other and which areas will complement each other. So we've done it with the charity that I work with, and it's brilliant. It's so interesting. And because we run an employability program for the young people we support, we've also done it for them as well, so that they can sort of get to know themselves better, and what makes them tick, and what work is going to suit them and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
they're just, yeah.
it's just about a change in just the way that you talk to different people. Personality diversity indicator is
Okay.
is the name of the test. And there's a link, equilibria.com. There's a link where you can take that online. I highly recommend it to everybody. It really is. It's just so enlightening. And just to repeat again, even down to how you address certain situations, and how you speak to different people. So if you find yourself rubbing people up the wrong way, then you know not to speak to that person in this particular way, because then, or you're trying to get a message across to someone, and they don't want to hear all the facts and figures. They just want to know, well, who else is doing it. I'm not very eloquent at explaining it. Do it yourselves. It's incredible. That's all. That this all comes back down to the mental health and understanding other people's mental health, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's a real effort to understand other people's mental health, and it's a really nice thing to do. And a few years ago, I was sat with a guy who's kind of been my mentor in the mental health workspace, really, explaining to him that how many more books I buy now to kind of understand people and understand stuff and relationships and my son. And I was telling him, and I was like, does that make you really weird? And he said, no, if you were doing a university course, you'd have about 20 textbooks by the end of your course, so that you can be the absolute best you can be at your chosen subject. So, if you are someone that likes self-help books for parenting or for relationships or friendships or eating or whatever, like, don't ever let anybody tell you that's too much, because actually it's great to know your shit and to understand the people around you, because you always come at things from a deeper place of empathy and understanding. Like, just educating yourself, if you have the time, is it's a
And
fun thing to do as well. Like, mental health can be fun. Getting to know yourself can be fun.
Yeah, the apostrophe is very important in that phrase there you just made. The difference between knowing your shit and knowing your shit. You know, there's a big difference there.
There's a big difference.
A very big difference. You mentioned about your son. Do you want to tell us about all the things that you do with him at 8 years of age? I was astounded actually. You're setting him out on that amazing path in
Yeah,
life.
you call me a hippie. No, it's basically because I guess because of my own childhood and growing up exposed to so much poor mental health, I know that the right thing to do with him is to make sure that he's equipped and that he knows how to manage his feelings and whether they're good or bad, right? And whether or not he's happy or not. So we have this because he's quite prone to getting angry. We have an emotional barometer which you can get online. So if he can't articulate how he's feeling to me, he will, look at the words on here and then pull out the actual definition of the words and go, yeah, I'm feeling self-pitying or needy or anxious or loving. And, he's a good reader. He gets it. He has his own gratitude journal.
8 years of age. 8 years of age.
That he writes in. And then we have a shared gratitude journal that we write in. And then we use Headspace every night to get him to sleep because they've got meditation apps on there for kids. And the reason I started using Headspace is because Frank can be quite fidgety sometimes. And I was like, okay, is there more that we can do for him to help him be more in the zone when he's at school? So that's why I started doing meditation with him, because actually I'm quite a fidgety person and meditation has been a real game changer for me. So can it help him? Yes, it does. We do it every night. He asks for the meditation now in the evening. So that's how into it he's got, because he recognises that it helps him chill out. And it's when I hear him telling his friends about the things that we do, that's when I know that it's working. But when I hear him telling his friends how to calm down or how to take some space for themselves, I'm like, okay, he's just repeating what the voice is saying, but it's obviously landing somewhere for him. And then every night we do this thing called GLAD, which I love, which is where you write down the word GLAD. People listening may have heard of this or seen this. You write down the word GLAD like that, and then you go through something you're grateful for that day, something you learned that day, something you achieved that day, and something that delighted you that day. Now, you know what it's like when you pick up kids from school and you're like, how was your day at school? And they're just like,
Yeah, it was all right.
Well, actually, if you do this
I
helps
killed a sparrow.
This helps you get actual information from them, especially the question where you go, what have you learned today? Not what have you learned, like, what have you learned? Oh, I did some maths. Because generally with Frank, he'll say, I learned that it's important to be kind at break time because X, Y, Z. Or I learned that when I listen to this person, this happens. So we do that every night. And we do it with his dad. So I'm separated, but wherever Frank is, we always have a FaceTime call in the evening and we unpack our day and we all do GLAD together. So grateful, learned, achieved, and something that delighted you. And it's nice. And I do it at the start of every team meeting with one of my staff members because it's a way of getting to know each other.
Very, very inspirational. Very inspirational indeed. If I didn't know you were so broken, I would say you're close to perfect. Is that very judgmental of me?
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, but like you say, I think we're all a bit broken. It's whether or not you're choosing to work on it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure we have covered it earlier. Where's the starting point for people to look inward and seek the help? You know, are there signs? What would you say to I was going to say normal then, and that isn't the right word I want to use. Your everyday person who knows that there's something inside them that isn't quite right and they don't feel that there's anyone they can reach out to. What would you say would be the first step for them to take?
So actually to write down stuff about how you're feeling. Like I'm not someone that journals. I know that lots of people do journaling. But actually, sometimes you need to write down what's supporting the way that you're feeling, like, and whether or not you have any evidence to support your feelings. So if you're feeling a particular a particular way, it's a helpful exercise to kind of go, okay, have I got any evidence right now to support the fact that I'm feeling down or that I'm worried about this? Like, what is feeding into that? And then you need to think about what you can change.
Okay.
So how can I change the fact that I feel like this? So for me, let's use my long COVID as an example. It's making me feel terrible. What can I change? I can change my approach to work and people with it by being much more honest with people, like I was with you at the start of this, about that it's making me feel a particular way. And then you have to address what you can't change and what you need to accept. So this is like a little formula, right? This is a formula for dealing with problems, which is, so you think about the evidence you've got to support your problem. You think about what you can change. You think about what you can and can't change, what you need to accept. And then you think about, well, actually, what needs your urgent attention with this problem? Like, what do you actually need to address from this problem? Is it a problem that you've made up yourself by thinking about something too much? Do you know what I mean? Like, have you actually created the problem? Some people are guilty of that. I've got family members that are guilty of that, sort of creating a problem out of nothing. And there's lots of reasons behind people doing that. But if you're on the receiving end of it, it can be quite painful, right? And then always think about what your helpful and unhelpful coping strategies are. And that's your point, to be honest with yourself.
Okay, you know, how you aggravate the situation, basically.
Yeah, because mental health is such a personal journey, isn't it? And creating good strategies for yourself, that's the bit where you get to have fun. And I say have fun because 2 years ago I was doing yoga and I broke my coffee table and smashed something up, and that's fun, right? That's me having a good time at home. But it's me experimenting and going, right, is this going to make me feel better? Actually, yoga's been a saving grace for me, but I never thought it would be. I always thought it was a bit, I don't know, I didn't get it. And now that I do it regularly, I get it. I get how good that is for my mental health and that it needs to be part of my life. But for somebody starting off that might be thinking, I'm feeling a particular way, well, firstly, they can think about themselves and they can go around the houses, or they can call one of these people, see who will listen in the first instance. Mm-hmm. They can speak to their doctor. They can try meditation. There's lots of things, but what's really helpful as an individual is recognizing what your unhelpful and helpful coping strategies are. So what is actually going to make you feel good and help you snap out of that? And also, this is slightly off topic, but not really. Before you get to a mental health crisis, there's something called a stress signature, which you learn about in mental health first aid training. And that's recognizing how you act when you're approaching a mental health crisis.
Okay.
And what your signifiers are. So we spoke about that maybe on camera and off camera earlier. It's kind of, what do you look like? What do you act like when things are about to take a downward spiral for you?
Yeah.
And do you know what you look like and what you act like when that's about to happen?
Yes. It's generally when it's generally other people that cause me to have that. Or isn't that for everybody? Maybe, I don't know. For me, because I live very much in solitary confinement with my beautiful wife, I don't get exposed to too many people that much. And then when it does get too peoply for me, then I can't cope, and I don't know how I would manage in that big bad world out there. And then when I think I'm basically, you know, coming back to Vocal Booth Weekend, if I'm dealing with people and I think I'm achieving something, and then somebody will come along, whether it's their fault or not, and puts a spanner in the works, my head goes. And I've learned through the years to actually stop, take a breath, and maybe it isn't a good idea for me to reply to that email immediately.
But it's taken you a while to get there, hasn't it?
Yeah, taken me a long time to get there, and it's a work in progress. Sometimes only recently I kind of lost track of where I was at, and I forgot everything that I'd learned over the last 4 or 5 years, and I just lost it, and I hated everybody. It didn't last very long. Then the next day I got it all off my chest and I was absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's brilliant that it didn't last that long, because for some people that point, when you reach that point, it can then last days or weeks or months, and you kind of never know what you're going to get when you get hit with a mental health crisis, if it's going to be a short-term thing or a long-term thing.
I couldn't imagine that at all, and nobody ever can they? It's impossible to empathise if you aren't of that makeup, to be that way. I'm a very positive person, and I like to think I can address these things, but other people, you see them, they're like stuck in a cycle, and you think you would be able to deal with it, but it isn't that easy, is it?
No, it's not that easy. And I always use this example with reference to someone I know. And this is back to a personal conversation that Andy and I had earlier, whereby I know someone dear to me in my life, and let's say they're asking for a glass of water, and 100 people around them could go, here you go, I've got a glass. Oh, I've got a glass of water, and they won't take the glass of water, right? So they're telling you what they need, and they're going, I need this glass of water, and then you're going, there's the glass of water, there's the glass of water. And some people are like that with help. So they're sort of crying out for help, but actually giving them the help that they can need can be a real journey, which is why you have to consistently give a shit. If we take it back to our talk title,
Brilliant.
You have to consistently give a shit. Yeah, you love that.
So why do they do that? Why are they in that position? Do they realise they're doing it?
It's a really hard thing, but it's just that word that you said, cycle, because some things are cyclical for people, aren't they? Right? Mm-hmm. You can be in that cycle, but when you're in a situation like that, it's about consistently showing up and offering that help. So for my example, my person, I will never stop offering that person a glass of water. But I'm here when they need me, when they're ready.
Mm-hmm. But you can't. It's very, very noble. The only way I can relate to that is, and this analogy jumped into my head when I was thinking about the conversation we were going to have, way before children were even on the horizon for myself. I remember sitting on a bus one time, going somewhere, wherever it was, and there was a woman on the bus with her kids, and she'd obviously been pushed to the end of her tether, and she was lost her rag shouting at the kids. She wasn't violent with them. I'm going back years, obviously I was very young. And I thought to myself, how on earth can you be like that with children? Don't you love them and want everything for them? And then it was a few years later, I found myself screaming at my kids, and I thought to myself, I remembered that time. And you don't understand when you get pushed to the edge and then it happens. I mean, that's kind of relating to what you're saying. You don't understand until you get pushed over that edge, and not everybody is aware that they can reel themselves in, kind of thing.
And you're right, is that Colin? So yeah, some people can feel like a burden. Imagine feeling like a burden when you just want help, or you just want someone to listen to you. That's terrible. But the flip side is that there are some people that don't want to be helped. Genuinely, they don't want to be helped, and they need to go on that journey of self-responsibility on their own. And that's a whole other different topic and a whole other different conversation. And that can be a real painful thing if you're someone trying to help them. But I always believe just consistently show up in giving a shit for people. Like just, where you can, where it's not going to take too much of your energy and it's not going to hurt you and you're not standing in harm's way by doing that. Like, yeah, just keep showing up for people and make sure you let people know that they are, you will be one of their 5, which you obviously do with a multitude of people, Andy. Like, you obviously reach out to your network quite frequently to say that you're there if they need you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, I do. We could quite easily sit here talking all night, but
we're not gonna because I really want a burger.
I was going to say I think we covered the main topics. People were quite happily sitting listening to you. So tell us about where you share the more words of wisdom and what you're actually doing at the moment on the radio. Are you still on Gadio?
I do you know what I am, but I've taken time off. So because I said this to you earlier, I keep saying I'm not going to do a talk, and then I always think, what if I help someone? What if somebody's listening and you've made them feel better, and then you do it, and that's giving a shit. To me, that's giving a shit. It's sort of showing up to sort of give a shit in case something you say or direct people to really helps them make a difference. So at the moment, I haven't been doing Gadio. I've been signed off sick. I'm not doing much work at all because it's really hard, and I'm very lucky to be working with and for some really understanding people. So I'm trying to do what I can, but people can catch me on my Instagram, which is my unusual name. And yeah, I am on Gajo normally once a week. I do lots of talks. I'm working with We Are Hummingbirds, which is a really good organisation, and a young carers charity as well. I think if people want to give a shit, they can wake up tomorrow and choose to give a shit, because it is a choice. It's a choice to do. It's like you choose to love people, right? You choose to. We choose. I think most things, the good stuff is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like bad stuff that happens to us isn't a choice. But thank you for wishing me a speedy recovery. I appreciate it. Also, have a think about what inspires you to give a shit, because the charities that move me might not be the charities that move you, Andy, right? So it's like, where could your energy be spent? Because actually often charities don't want money, or movements don't want money. They just might want people's time, or for you to spread the word. So if you have a platform of people that are listening to you, if you have an active tribe, share the stuff that inspires you, share what helps you to give a shit, because that in time helps to promote change. I think back to a point Andy made earlier about fitting it into your schedule and people saying, well, I don't have time for that. We all have time. We do. It's just about making time. Like we do. We all have time, literally, sorry to be disgusting, but when you're sitting on the toilet on your phone, taking a shit, you could use that opportunity to give a shit, right?
Don't anybody ring me while they're having a shit.
No, not to ring people, but share something positive, or to contact someone, or whatever, and make caring, and make it a habitual thing for yourself. So some people run for a different charity each year, or they raise money for a different charity each year, or they go and volunteer or something. Like, you don't always have to be aligned with the same charity and the same organisation every year. You can spread the love, spread the time, spread that energy, and get involved with different movements, or find out I bet somebody that you're friends with on Facebook works for a charity, and right now they probably need something.
Mm-hmm.
And that might not always be money. Do you know what I mean? It could be anything. But yeah, just show up for the causes that matter to you. Find out what motivates you, and do try and act with integrity where possible.
Brilliant words to end on, I do believe. I'm going to let you go and get your burger.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening, contributing, and being patient with my COVID fog. I hope I haven't waffled too much.
No, it's been great. And if you'll be happy to join me again, I'm sure we can talk about something else in the not too distant future.
Yeah, when I'm feeling better, let's talk about music or something.
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to press this button here, and it's actually going to kick you out of Zoom, and I'm going to change the window.
That feels so harsh and out of order. That's like...
What do you want me to do? I don't know what else I can do.
I don't know. I want to come to Vocal Booth Weekend next week, and next week, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? I'm making stuff up now. If my COVID brains can let me go. So yeah, I'm going to come next year. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to go to the Fishbowl and eat good food. That's what I want.
Ellie, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go and talk to the people now. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Take care. Thank you. Bye. Kick me out.
Go. She's gone. Wonderful. Okay, so with my new little toys, I move on to a window. I'm busy all week this week. Tomorrow night, the same time, 6 o'clock, I am talking to, I mentioned him earlier, Mark Wilkinson, Craig Bartlett, and Mr. Lee Wright. We're going to be in talk with the Soulful House Mafia. It was a project put together by Mark originally. After we discussed it, I decided that I wanted to take it over myself and present it to you on a monthly basis. So on the last Tuesday of every month, I'm going to be joined live on this feed by some of the guys who are responsible for the incredible UK Soulful House movement that we have. I am going to look over here and say thank you to anybody that I can see that's with me. Forgive me if I miss your name off. Leave another comment by the time I get to the bottom of the list. So I'm starting off with Carla, Neil Davison, Beautiful evening yesterday, Neil. Thank you. To Pugs, good to see you caught onto that one, brother. To Prue, to Gainer, to Diana, thank you for passing through, Diana. Hope to see you here again. To Ray King, shout out Ray. I know doing a lot of work yourself with your business. To Ruth as well, thank you very much for being here. Cassandra, nice to have you. Glad to see you got it working. Colin Williams, again, respect to you, brother. Just scrolling down, see if there's anybody else that I haven't said hello to. To Bobby as well. What did Bobby say? Came in late. Thank you for being here. John Rogers, shout out to John and to Wendy. And Pug says yes for sure. Lovely lady indeed. Check her out. Ellie and Seamus, a great couple together. Right, in the top right hand corner of the screen you can see my little access symbol. You guys who are part of that are helping me do these things. Brand new computer that I've got that enables me to stream this without any stuttering, any issues. I've got my nice little app here that enables me to change the screens and without having to lean over. I've got my desk absolutely how I wanted it. So thank you to all the Access people. Thank you to all the Family 237 members. Hopefully that talk will explain why we do what we do, just to help people out. Wake up and turn up. Be there for somebody. That's all we can do. Errol Jones is here as well. Nice one, Errol. And everybody else. I did see Michelle sharing the stream earlier. Thank you so very much. If you are watching the recording and you're not familiar with what it is that I do, then do go back and check out the rest of the videos. Inspire and be inspired. We've covered a whole heap of topics. Tomorrow evening, the Soulful House Mafia. And then on Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock UK time, I'm going to be talking to Mr. Wes Saunders from Defected Records. That's going to be a big talk indeed, Thursday. So again, I will say thank you very much. And I am going to press this button that takes me to the end screen and then it'll cut you off. So enjoy the rest of Monday, guys. Love you so much. Thank you for your support. I'm out of here.